Okay, good afternoon. So, this afternoon we're going to talk about transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. So, it refers to the stimulations of uh, usually the cutaneous nerve, specifically the sensory nerve, in order to usually give relief on pain sensation that the patient is experiencing. So, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, or TENS. So electrical stimulation for pain modulation is the primary reason for TENS. So why do we use TENS? Basically for pain modulations. When you say modulate, we're trying to regulate or to decrease the amount of pain that the patient is experiencing. So we stimulate the cutaneous nerve. The cutaneous nerve basically is made up of the sensory nerve, sensory receptors. Okay? It is found on the surface of your skin. So TENS units include biphasic low voltage stimulators. Some of them are portable, some of them are interferentials, and some have high voltage stimulators. So basically, we will talk about these biphasic low voltage and portable TENS and interferential. Okay. So usually low voltage stimulators and portable TENS are just synonymous. Interferential is different because the current are interfering with each other. In high voltage stimulation, so usually this is done for noxious stimulation. No? When you say noxious stimulation, you stimulate the cutaneous nerve, trying to elicit up to the point of pain. No? As sa pain threshold na level. I mean, ang imong stimulations, na siya sensation yung medyo sakit siya. No? Okay. Okay, now, mechanism of pain modulations. What are the mechanics? So usually sa sensory tense, we call this sensory tense, no? There are several types of pain modulations. It starts with sensory, rhythmic, and noxious. Okay? So tulo na sila ka mechanisms. So let's start with sensory tense. So sensory tense is the conventional high rate nga or high frequency nga klase sa tense. Uh, it can be used for any painful conditions, most commonly acute or post-operatively. So, dira sila ginagamit. So, it basically sensory tense stimulates, no? Katong gina-discuss na ko, discuss na ko last time na perceptible um, electrical stimulations. Means it means nga tama na siya sensory level. So this is a classic conventional type of TENS. Okay? So basically we stimulate the large A beta fibers. Mo siya target that we perceive, no? Sa tingling sensation that is generated by the transcutaneous or sensory TENS nga type sa um, TENS, no? The goal is to stay submotor. Submotor lang siya. So, tama lang siya sa sensation. To ensure that only A beta fibers are stimulated. And why? Mga anong nga naman? Because if there is a slight contraction, there's a good chance that the small A delta fibers could be stimulated, potentially interfering the gate control theory. So, pwede siya nga if there are slight muscle contractions, so it's no longer so it's no longer censoring a tight tense, no? And the mechanism of blocking the pain is no longer based dito sa gate control theory. It will be the other one, no? Which we later on will discuss also. So the stimulation should be comfortable. Okay. So dapat ang iyang ma-feel about sa electrical signals ang gina-fire sa imong unit. Wala siya perceptible contraction but at the same time comfortable para sa patient, dili siya painful, so that it can be used in maybe longer period of time. Okay. Siyempre, bearable naman ang sensation, no? Hindi siya sakit, and wala siya other reaction yung makita. So the treatment time for TENS varies from 10 to 45 minutes depending on the depth of the target structure. So depende siya sa target structure mo. So of course, if deeper ang areas nga imong gina-target, let's say for example, bagong panganak ang patient. So ang painful areas is lalong, no? Naa siya dito sa iyang usually naa sa iyang uterus kay lalong man na siya. So it will be used for a longer period of time. Pero kung ang iyang pain nara superficial ra, nara say nodules, mapil nimo palpable, then mabawra man na siya. So mubo ra. So 10 to 20 minutes is already enough. Sensory tense is commonly used to reduce pain after an injury or after surgery in combinations with rice nga kuha na to no procedure. So usually sa mga active injuries, so rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So usually ginadungan na siya dira. Okay, so but since the A beta accommodate to stimulation quickly, so usually the conventional type of tense, which is continuous, it should be adjusted periodically. So when you say adjusted periodically, dili lang nimo siya iset sa isa ka settings. You have to adjust it for or to change the setting. Maybe you decrease the amount of intensity or uh, wala nila. Wait for a moment, guys. Ako sa ning ipusa. Ika-36 na daw niya. Silver ban. Unya ugma unta to niya kay na may mga lakaw uban. Yan niya sawa na lang. Dungan silang Margel. Si Margel murag ugma kung kay Margel. So, pero gidungan na lang nila. Okay, so to continue, so ano siya, no, na combo na gina-combo ni siya usually sa rehab, no, ang TENS together with the rest elevation or rest ice compression and elevation. So gina-combo na siya, no, mag-apply. So to avoid accommodations, since the A beta fibers, sensory fibers usually rapid yun yung accommodations. So that's why you need to, from time to time, it's either you increase the intensity or decrease it. No? As long as the intensity is on uh, perceptible, no, sa patient. But usually it starts from from the minimum, o no? Dito gid sa pinakagamay na ma-perceive sa patient and slowly increasing it, no? Slowly every 5 minutes you try to increase it, the intensity uh, of your tense unit. So to avoid the accommodations of the sensory nerve fibers, specifically the beta. So many tense units allows the clinician to use a modulation mode to decrease accommodation to the stimulations. This is most often used in sensory tense since the large diameter nerve fibers that are targeted with this type of stimulations accommodate quickly. So, ginamodulate nila. That's why in the last time we demonstrate, if you notice dito sa mga naka-experience itong gamit na ito nga tense unit, you'll notice that there is already a uh, pre-modulated settings, no? That the setting itself try to decrease and then suddenly it would increase, no? Di ba? Saka kanaog siya. Na siya ay tendency nga siguro mga 4 or 5 ka electrical signals ang iyang gi-fire na mubo. After that, musaka. Then musaka siya mga katulo or kaupat po din mumubo. So that is an example of modulation of sensory tense. So so that the large A beta fibers will not accommodate. No? And then these are example of the settings that you could see in modulation mode. No? So we have here the amplitude modulations. Here, all sizes of the wave is all equal, di ba? Equal na sila tanan ang size, no? Kalaparon sa duration nila. But the amplitude is different. So gikan sa mobo ni taas na itaas, no? Ramping siya, then ubos na po, then nag-ramp, ubos na po. And here we have pulse rate modulation. When you say pulse rate, it refers to the on and off time. You see, there is a bigger off time, no? Duha ka successive nga bigger ang off time here, nagkamubo. Okay? Pero same height ra. May pareha ra ang katusgon, pero ang pag-fire sa electrical signals ay ilahang interval dili sila pareho. Here we have phase duration modulation. So ganito, it refers now to the sizes, no? Sa phases sa duration. Na gamay, gamay, then nagdako, then nagdako, nagdako, nagdako. So this is our example of modulation type of modulation mode of the sensory tense. Then we have your arithmetical or motor tense. Okay, so gayon na perceptible ram to siya sa patient ang sensation. At this time, in arithmetical tense, it is also referred to as a low rate tense. Low rate means the frequency that the electrical signal fires from your tense unit is very low. I think there are all about 2 to 4 pulses per second. No? And it has been equated with acupuncture mechanism of pain relief. This type of tense is applied with a broad range of parameters in the literature, which may have resulted in variable responses. Some studies indicate that they use acupuncture-like tense, but the parameters do not fit into the category that would evoke the pain modulations theory previously described. So this mode of tense incorporates the rhythmical pain modulations theory and commonly produces a strong, tolerable muscle contraction. So this time, it produces a strong, tolerable muscle contraction. So it produces a quite strong contraction, but pag gamay-gamay, no, kaana, pero kusog siya, no? Pero low intensity, low rate, no? Yeah, low rate tense. So ang frequency niya gagmay. So makita nimo every time nga there's an electrical signal, makita nimo muscle nga mo contract, no? So rhythmical tense is more vigorous than sensory tense. So it is more vigorous because of the muscle contraction na type. Okay, every time mo fire, mo contract man gyud. It is used to treat subacute pain or trigger points. So it should not be used in acute injuries, basically sa mga fracture, because the contraction of the muscle might uh, makasamot siya sa fracture, no? So, or makaresult siya discomfort sa patient or cause pag yun siya sa bleeding. So, dili siya pwede, no? Sa mga acute injury. So, kaya tungod sa muscle contraction. So, rhythmical stimulation is theorized to release endogenous opiates in inhibiting. This time, the cells, no, or the tissues that is injured is being stimulated to produce opiates, no, and inhibit through descending mechanism and may provide relief for 1 to 3 hours after 30 minutes treatment. So, mo ni nakabintahan niya Kaya nga naman, kaning opiates nga substances nga naa sa tissue, long lasting man ni siya. No? Kung low rate nga TENS ang imong gamiton. Compared itong sensor high gain na nga, pag mawala ang imong TENS unit, wala na nimong gipon, mubalik na po ang pain. Di wala naman to siya. Kaya kato siya magod mo rag igo ra gito siya nag-cover bitaw gi overwhelm lang niya dito ang gate nimo sa kada ganon sa sensation nga nag-block dito. So the pain will not able to pass through because there is a very thick na na fast nga electrical signals nga nag-aagi dito. So, unsa man tingling like sensation. So akatong low na low rate nga or katong signal coming from low velocity nga fiber nga gikan sa sea, siya kaagi dito kay hinay man siya nya kanina ay fast. Pero once makuhaon po nimo tong sa gikan sa fast sa beta, wala open ang gate. No? Pero kani siya lahi because the opiates are released dito sa imuhang area nga gi treat. So naa siya dito ga react. So therefore it covers the sa sensory pathway nimo sa katong gikan sa C fibers. Dili niya paagyon dito mismo sa area up to dito sa cord. So inana. So although the pain relief may be delayed, so dili siya immediate ang imong ma-feel nga ma-relieve ka sa pain. It could take time siguro mga ma-feel siya nimo mga after sa treatment mga 20 minutes pa or 30 minutes ay ha magpan because it takes time to build up the opiates nga substance dito sa imong sa area kung asa nimo gi-apply ang imong low uh, ang imong arithmetical tense. But it lasts longer. Then you have your noxious type of tense. Noxious, from the word, saan siya kasabatan ng noxious? Noxious. Diba? Painful stimulus. So a noxious stimulus is applied to elicit pain relief through the diffuse noxious inhibitory control mechanisms. This mode of tense is commonly used with point stimulators because the amplitude should be at the maximum tolerable level of trigger, sending a serotonergic tracts to inhibit pain. So this time it utilizes these no, tracts, which responds also to serotonin. No, katong ginaagyahan sa serotonin na substance, mag-release, itong i-block, yung serotonin causes assimilate produce sa pain sensation. So, itong i-block para di siya mag-release ng serotonin. So, clearly, this type of treatment is performed only when pain is exceeded and it is usefulness and long-term interruption in pain is the goal. So, kung sobra-sobra na siya kasakit, so ginagamit siya. This type of treatment works well with persistent pain with various myofascial disorder. Various myofascial disorder. Take note of that. Myofascial means na siya dito sa imong fascia. So, a person with myofascial pain syndrome, mo ni ginagamit. So, usually, gina-apply ni siyang electrode dito sa area kung asa makitaan ang knot or ang nodules. Okay? Okay, kato siya, na siya yung muscle spasm. Tungkol siya sa muscle spasm. Okay, so, uh, ang katong nag-spasm nga muscles, iya tong i-stimulate. So what happens kung i-stimulate niya? Ang iyang sensation na ma-feel dito sa patient is mas dako. isa regular niya nga pain sensation. So iya pa murag i-magnify pa gid niya ba. Exaggerate niya until such time nga ang imong tolerance level or ang imong pag-perceive sa sensation maka-accommodate sa inato siya nga amount sa pain. Pag remove niya ato sa iyang tense unit, what will happen? Mubalik ang iyang sensation dito sa normal nga pain. Pero dili na niya to siya maingon siya, ay, di na kayo sakit. Kaya nga na-use na siya dito sa taas. Ang klase sa pain sensation. Let's take for example, ang iyang intensity ato siyang pain. Kung use niya ang VAS or visual analog scale is, say maingon siya 6/10 ang pain sensation. So, applyan na ko to ang motor points kung asa tong area nga asa dapit niya na perceive ang pain, stimulate na ko siya o mas labaw pa ato mga intensity. Maka-isa ka na sir, mag 7 na 8. So, kasi since na-use na siya itong 8, pagkuha na ko sa unit, what will happen? Mukalit lang ubos ang iyang intensity. So, ang perception dayon sa imong patient is, ay, gamay ra. Bearable na siya. So, instead of scoring that again to 6, may ingon naman siya nga 3 na. No? Kaya naman, na-use na siya atong iyang sensation nga taas nga pain. Yan, ibalik siya sa original nga pain, di ubos na lang. No? So, inana siya. So, pero mali siyang key. Dapat ibutang nimo siya sa area kung asa ang imong myofascial disorders. Kung asa to ang imong persistent nga pain nga nabati. So, a key to appropriate noxious stents is to use machine that allows the stimulation of C fibers. So, stimulate nimo siya katong area, di ba? Itong motor points nimo. Oh, mo to siya source dito sa C fiber kasi dito man to ang imong nox, imong pain sensation na perceive. Subot pa sabot dito ang imong nox C fibers. So, imo to siyang overstimulate ibalik. So, but very few machines allow a phase duration lang enough to elicit response of C fibers. Since long phase duration have potential to apply great deal of current, maura na siya. Kaya dapat taas gid siya ang imong kuan. Kaya siyempre ang pain sensation taas na guna. Imo pa gina siyang labuan. Yung gamay ra machine. So usually ang ginagamit para may nana siya is atong padakuon ang current density sa area nga gina-stimulate by using this neuroprobe or galvanic stimulator. So, probe ang gamiton, no? Neuroprobe. So, gamay siya. Gamay siya katong mga probe nga kwan. Mo to'y stimulate atong area nga naay murag na knot, no? Or naay spasms. Okay? So, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation parameters. So, what are these? We have sensory, type of tense. Ana ni siya ang iyang frequency of phase duration. So, taas. The frequency niya is more than 100 pulse per second. So, submotor ang ihang amplitude. Sensory lang, A beta. Ang imong rhythmical, 2 to 4 pulse per second. It produces a strong muscle contraction because of this one. No? Ang iyang phase duration is 200 to 300 microseconds. So, ang iyang na-target na fiber is A delta. Ang noxious, ang phase duration tanawa, greater than 1 millisecond. So, medyo dako-dako siya, no? So, ang ihapon nga pulse per second is 2 to 4 up to 100 to 150. So, ang iyang amplitude is very tolerable pero C fiber. So, mo to siya nga ingon kong gaina, we can only stimulate the C fiber if we are going to increase the current density in the probe. So, how do we increase? By reducing the size of the electrode. Motong neuroprobe ang gigamit. So here, we have here some links sa videos where you can, if you click this link, you'll be thrown dito sa YouTube sa mga videos which shows how to apply TENS in patient. No? At basically, ang ginagamit nila mostly ang gigamit ito is sensory. walay arithmetical and noxious. Okay? Now, there's another type of TENS. Okay, you have your interferential current therapy or IFC, no? Interferential current therapy. So in IFC, it penetrates deeper, no? So instead of using TENS, di ba? Ang TENS na to gina is ang pinaka-deep niya nga penetration kung gamitan nato siya o rhythmic, ba? Rhythmic. Kaso lang delikado, labi na sa mga acute case nga wala pa naapay bleeding siya, naapay kwan, no, pwede pa nga maka-enhance ka sa injury, no? So, instead of using that, we will use this one because mas lalong iyang penetration without compromising the the patient, no, sa iyang injury. Or we can, instead of also using the noxious nga type nga kinalang ka atong probe, we use only this one. Pwede na siya. No? Later on, we'll discover why. Okay. So, in IFC, it uses a carrier frequency. When you say carrier, kanin siya nga frequency may gadala. Okay? By about 4,000 hertz or 4 kilohertz. Okay, 4,000, that is kilo, no? Ang 1,000. So 4 kilohertz, and by crossing two individual current generators, they interfere with each other, resulting in the desired amount or desired treatment frequency within the body. So mahitabo class na ay carrier frequency. Gina-cross na siya dito sa imuhang swift, no? Na swift na frequency to produce a 100 hertz. So 100 hertz is a low frequency. So ang limitations sa atong noxious kanina nga TENS is overcome by this. So duha ka 400 or 4,000 hertz nag-cross sila here. Kanya na ay difference sila nga 100, kaning 100 mo ning nag-create og low frequency na nga current nga nag-pass dito sa tissue. Okay? So the carrier frequency overcomes skin resistance more easily and penetrates the skin more deeply than a regular electrical stimulator with less user discomfort for a given level of stimulation. So di kayo siya sakit. No? Dili kayo siya sakit. Kaya nga naman, high man siya. Pagsulod niya it is 4,000 hertz. High frequency, perceptible nimo. No? Dito siya sa perceptible nimo nga kwan, no? Nga sensation. But yet, ang effect niya is 100 hertz, which is low frequency. No? So, maka-create siya og muscle contraction. So, good ka dito sa sensory, taba kay rhythmic, taba kay noxious. So, isa lang hindi mo ka-apply, ratsada na tanan ang type sa TENS. No? So, deep in the tissues, the body perceives difference between the carrier frequency. Excuse me, sa class. Ako sa sibuk na yun. Carrier frequency, which is the treatment frequency resulting in electrical stimulation deep within the tissues rather than just under the electrodes where there actually is numbing effect taking place. So kani siya class kung i-apply nimo ni ha, di ba sa regular nga TENS, ang akong na-feel nga sensation dito ra under the probe kung asa ang tingling sensation. That's why critical kaayo nga dapat naigo na to ang motor point or trigger point. Whereas diri sa IFC, dili na to siya igon, dili na to siya patungan og electrode. Igo lang na to siya ipaagihan sa current. So that's why placing of electrode is very important. No? So later on, manotice na ito na kung sa pag-place na niya. So uh, for example, at the frequency of 4,000 hertz, skin resistance is 80 times lower. So mo magani siya kanindot ka good kay pag-apply nimo kay high frequency siya, ang resistance sa skin is lower compared sa low resistance. Dito gay na sa moto siya gay na nga sa explanation dito sa noxious kinahanglan kag taas gid kaayo kay ngano ang skin interface taas man gud siya resistance no sa low frequency nga current para makapenetrate. So kinahanglan mo increase gyud ang intensity so which is already very painful. Whereas dili ka na hinala kay ngano at 4,000 hertz ang resistance sa skin is very low. Kung makaagi siya dayon. Pag penetrate niya, pag interfere sa duwa, magawas na yung low frequency current. Wala na siya mahimo. Kaya na naman dito ang current, sulod naman. So, okay na siya. So, inana siya. So, comfortable gyapon ang sensation. Although, ang result, nindot. No, muna yung bintahan sa IFC. So, in addition, because interferential current is tolerated better by skin, the dosage can be increased, thus improving the ability of the interferential current to permeate tissues and allowing easier access to deep structure. So, next week will be F2F. No? Sa atong laboratory, okay, lecture man ta karon last exam. So, next week is F2F. Mag F2F ta, di mag-demonstrate ka ng IFC. Okay? Uh, After that, mag-assign din ta dito sa groupings, no? Mag-adto ta dito sa rehab, mag-groupings ta, then kung what day ang vacant ninyo, mo na itong ingon nga dito na mo ibadi-badi mo dito nila, no? So the physiologic effects of IFC is depending upon the parameters that are selected that can be increased in localized blood flow. So, mo na siya class ang pag-place. So, kani siya, mo na siya isa ka channel. So, this is one channel. Okay. Then kani isa. So if this is the pain in this area na diri, X siya. So ang current diri mo flow pa ana, diri mo flow pod pa ingon dira. So diri sa tunga naa diri ang iyahang manifestation sa 100 hertz nga low frequency current. Ma-feel na diri sa patient. The patient will not feel the current here sa diri gikan diri nga ana diri og diri naa siya diri. Okay? So ito nga. So depending on the parameters that are selected, there can be the stimulation of local nerve cells that can be have a pain reducing analgesic effect due to potentially blocking the transmission of the pain signals, or by stimulating the release of pain reducing endorphins, the opioid mechanism. So see, sensory. This one is retnetial. Wala sa noxious. Di ba? Ang noxious, dito na siya sa tunga. Nana siya. Depending upon the parameter selected, there can be some degree of muscle stimulation as muscle contraction can be achieved through external application of electrical current, overcoming some of the muscle inhibition often caused by local injury and edema. Muscle spasm. Sama na siya. Di ba noxious? No? I think that is noxious tense. So let me check ha. Going back dito sa taas. Muscle spasm. See? Muscle spasm. Yeah, noxious tense. Na ano siya diri sa kani, number 3. Muscle stimulation. So as muscle contraction can be achieved to external application of electrical current coming sa muscle inhibition often caused by local injury. So kana siya muscle inhibition caused by local injury. So your muscles will guard and undergo spasm. The electrical current is applied to the affected area using 4 electrodes from 2 channels of the stimulator. The four electrodes are placed in such a way that the two channels cross each other in affected area. So inana siya, nag-cross, no? So mo ni siya ang isa ka channel mo na yung fire, regular niya nga shape, ang isa is inani. What will happen when they cross? Mo na siyang may byproduct siya. No? So dili siya dapat pareha, no? Kay para na interference or na difference nila. So inana siya ang placement. So let's say for example, mo ni siya itukod. Saan ako siya kung kani ang akong target? Diri na akong isa ka electrode, diri ang isa ka channel, diri ang isa ka electrode, diri ang isa. Ang isa diri, then isa po diri. Cross, no? Iana siya i-X. Oh, such as this one. Mo na ihang placement. No? So kani siya ang focus diri or target area. Okay, diri, then ana nag-cross. So diri ang we call that as bet difference, no, sa current. So manare discomfort maybe because of the electrode nga interface with the skin. Maybe dili siya damp ang electrode, not damp ni damp, or dili siya basa. So gananon i-wet nato na siya para maayo ang adherence sa electrode sa skin. So unsa may ma-feel sa patient? Tingling or pains in needle sensation on the contact area of the electrodes. Pero sa area nga treated, naa dito pod inana. Or sometimes the patient will feel the contraction. Okay. So the intensity should be increased within the patient's comfort level. Nana siya ang kategory niya. So the IFC has been used by the physical therapy in many years, and it is proven to be safe. Okay. However, ang ihang primary contraindication is patients with pacemaker and buntis. So sa mga cancer, di pwede. Dili pwede siya sa chest. It could interfere with the auto-rhythmicity of the cardiac muscles. So, sa may ginagamit niya. So, ginastimulate niya ang A beta fibers instead of using the C. So, A beta, then ang low frequency ato niya is delta. So, mo ni siya mga frequency niya class. Analgesia, you can control actually the frequency of the bit frequency. No, katong difference between sa 4000 o 4001, which is 100 hertz, we call that as bit frequency. Na mo to siya nagka-create sa effect. You can control that, no? Pwede din mo siya i-control. Pwede siya nimo i-change sa 70 to 120 or 35 to 50 or 50 to 80 depending kung unsay problema sa patient. So if it is pain, you go to the high frequency which is high rate which is 70 to 120. If it is reduction of edema, so you need a muscle contraction and muscle action pump. So para mag-contract ang kinahanglan nimo. So kung mao na imong kinahanglan, kailangan mag-contract ang muscle para ma-trigger ang muscle action pump, no? So you set it in a lower frequency which is 35 to 80 hertz, no? So dito na siya sa rhythmic. Kung muscle guarding, dito siya sa 50 to 80. And remember, ang gina-stimulate ni diri is the C fibers. Okay, so inana itong bantayan. So the benefits of IFC is that it is deeper and more comfortable for your patient. So mas lalong siya. So this is the link. If you want to know how to, if you want to see how it is applied to the patient, may link nga ni makita nato sa YouTube kung giunsa niya pagbutang sa interferential current nga electrode, no? So Online na siya class. Anyway, pagbalik na to next week, which is, ano sa gani itong lab, F2F, I think that is Tuesday or Monday. So, dira ta mag-laboratory, and we will try nga i-demonstrate me ang TENS and IFC, no, classic TENS. IFC, kay katong last time TENS man to, with EFI, electrical muscle stimulator. Okay, so i-demonstrate na nato, no, ang IFC next time. Makita ta. Okay, so thank you for listening, and see you next meeting.